You're busy, you've got a decent practice, but nobody wants to be decent. You want to be great, and you want to have a great practice. So how did the most productive, profitable dentist in the nation balance real life, work, and profits, and somehow make it all seem fun? Well, it comes down to simple, everyday practices. So grab a lunch, join us as we chat with top clinicians and influencers to discover their formula for uncommon success. Are you ready? Then it's time to explore everyday practices.
Welcome to Everyday Practices Podcast. I am your co-host, Reagan Robertson, here today, and you can't see the smile on my face, but I sure hope that you can hear it. I'm here with my co-host, Dr. Chad Johnson. How are you today?
I'm doing fine co-hosting my co-host, Reagan. How are you?
Doing great. So as you hear almost every episode, I'm excited about the guest that we're interviewing today. And this one, I'd love to give a little bit of a preview to because he has helped shape my view of dentists over the last decade. So the bar, if you listened to the intro, is extremely high on how I see dentistry, and it's because of Dr. Wade Kifer. Wade, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Now, how long have you been with PDA?
Oh gosh, I started with PDA I think in 2010, so I've been working with them for 10 years now, and I've pretty much been in coaching the whole time, and then been using the marketing for the last few years. So, and then recently come on as faculty, helping develop a program for helping doctors work on comprehensive diagnosis. So,
yeah. So, Wade, something that we wanted our listeners to hear in was I've been talking briefly over the last couple of podcasts about my COIS experience just beginning. You're 12, 13 years into your COIS experience, and maybe it would be good, to kind of share how you use the COIS methods, because my question to you is, you're fully developed, with his mentality and everything like that. So how much of his forms, how much of his concepts do you use? Is there some stuff that you don't quite fully use? For example, Oryx, that might be a good, starting point. Of course, if it was free and easy to use and everyone loved it, then everyone would use it. That goes to COIS. But, I've found that it's kind of hit or miss whether people use it, but nonetheless, some, people integrate the medical history, the dental history into your new patient experience. How do you go about doing that, Wade?
Well, you mentioned Oryx, and for those of the listeners who don't know, Oryx is a software that Dr. John Coyce kind of developed, him and some partners, and the whole idea is it just kind of gives a flow of an exam. Dr. Coyce, when I went up there, and I know you've been to a couple of courses now, but we kind of learn everything, and but how do you implement it, right?
Right.
How do you put this into practice and use it for everything? And if I was being completely honest, I was probably through course 4 or 5 and I hadn't fully implemented it. And I found a doctor mentor there who kind of chewed my butt out, for lack of better terms, saying, hey, you've invested a lot of money and you know it. Why aren't you doing it? And he kind of said, well, you've got to implement a comprehensive exam. That's the first thing you do. You have to go by the COIS principles and get the exam implemented. So that's stirring around in my brain. And so I started that in 2008. And about that time was 2010. And so I was in a struggling practice, had one hygienist, couldn't keep her full, couldn't keep my schedule full. And so I actually bit the bullet, I was probably on Dental Town or Facebook, I don't remember. And I ended up down at PDA. And I had researched PDA, and I didn't really know it was COIS based, but I'd seen a lot of this stuff with the risk factors. And so I understood risk factors and how to do it, but I didn't know how to communicate it. So I give Bruce a huge credit for that. I was already kind of mulling around in my mind of what I wanted to do. And then Bruce put it in really simple terms for me of lowering risk and talking risk factors to patients. And so I think I took to it a lot better than a lot of other clients, honestly, that went through PDA early.
Because you had the COIS background.
Because I had the COIS background. I understood the technicality of it, but I understand how to communicate it.
So Wade, what's cool is mine was backwards. I went to PDA.
That's right.
About in 2014, so 6-ish years ago, and just recently went to COIS. And the way I was explaining it to, let's say, my cycling buddy, who's like, I've heard you talk about Productive Dentist Academy and even risk factors, while I'm cycling and stuff like that. So he gets it. But I was explaining that basically Dr. Coyce is the science behind it, and then Dr. Bruce Baird is the soft skills behind the science, or in front of the science, or something like that. That one is more the soft skills on how to utilize it. And I don't think neither of them are competing with one another as far as
Not a bit.
Exactly, but one is a little bit more of the soft skills of it, and not to say that Dr. Coyce doesn't appreciate that or implement it himself, but Dr. Bruce Baird does a better job as far as saying we're going to dedicate a few days. Because can you imagine Dr. Coyce doing 3 11-hour days of saying, okay, we're going to dedicate this to the soft skills? He could. But Dr. Bruce Baird does that, and Dr. Coyce goes through page after page after page of the science behind the toothpaste abrasivity, and all that stuff. You get what I'm talking about, Wade.
Yeah, and so that's a good way to put it, because Bruce talks about it, and us engineer minds, we go up to Coyce and we go, oh my gosh, he just taught me all that technical stuff, and this is absolutely amazing. And we want to come back and we want to tell our patients, you need to switch to this toothpaste because the abrasiveness of it, blah 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 blah. And, the patients are just glazed over in their eyes. And, our intentions are great. We found a new way to treat patients that lowers their risks, is better for the patient. And then Bruce comes in with a communication style that just says, hey, these things are all 100% right, but how are we going to communicate it so the patients are excited? Because knowing how to do the dentistry, but in getting the patients to do the dentistry are two different things. So one of Bruce's phrases, doing good while doing good. If the patient doesn't say yes to the treatment, they're not getting better. We're not talking, we can get into the benefits of cosmetic dentistry, and I do cosmetic dentistry. I think there's huge psychosocial benefits to it. We're literally just talking about disease process here. If they don't do the dentistry we recommend, they're either not getting better or most likely getting worse. So knowing the dentistry and communicating it and getting them to say yes is important for them, but it helps our practices too. So, it goes both ways to me.
Yep.
Absolutely. So you've got this knowledge, and I was tallying it up in my head. So well over 1,000 hours at least of CE over the last decade.
Oh man, with COVID, I think I've got 300 this year live CE.
Oh my God. Oh, right. So internally we call you the professor because of that. We know that you're so, it's a passion of yours. It's obviously something you do in your sleep, and to have that communication gap, I can see in my mind, is so powerful to have all this knowledge and then be able to offboard, onboard it to the patient in a way that they can understand and accept and agree to. Having that just in your own sphere is really powerful. How did you implement that with your team, with your employees, and how did that become part of your culture?
That's a good question, because here I am, course 4 or 5 into it. And for those who don't know, each course is thousands and thousands of dollars. For us, it started with, and someone gave me the advice, and then Bruce showed me how, was doing that exam. And I do an exam on every patient where we have to give a diagnosis. And this is kind of what Bruce said. For perio, you have to give a diagnosis and a risk. And for the teeth, the biomechanical, you have to give a diagnosis and a risk, and function and aesthetics and physiologic risk. So we developed an exam. I didn't have the Oryx software at the time, Chad, that you had mentioned. So we developed an exam where the staff asked me all the perio questions. And part of it kind of looks for show because, as dentists, we all looked at those things anyway. But now the staff asked me all those things out loud. And at the end, I have to give a perio diagnosis and a perio risk assessment, high, medium, or low. And I had to do that for every one of those categories. And once I give a risk assessment and a diagnosis, I have to give a treatment plan, because I can't look at the patient and say you're high risk perio without giving them a treatment plan to lower their risk. And it's the same for biomechanical, function, aesthetics, physiologic. And so that's kind of what we did. And when you say you get your staff on board, we shared that exam. It's up on the big screen. We wrote it together, what's important, what's not. I let my staff co-collaborate on the exam and we talk about it. And now all of a sudden they're asking me the diagnosis. Well, if they know the diagnosis, then we went through the treatments of each one. And this didn't happen in a 1 hour meeting.
Right.
First meeting's probably 4 or 5 hours we go through. And then all of a sudden it's once a month, maybe we spend an hour or two and we go over just perio. If they're this, this diagnosis, what do we do? Excuse me?
Wait, well, I just wanted to know, was your first exam that was Coy style brutally like dedicated and lengthy? I mean, and my follow-up question already would be, how was it at first, and did it become slower or not slower? Did it become more efficient, or is it still actually quite tedious?
And it's funny that you say tedious because, I bought a practice from an old Dawson trained dentist, and I respect Pete to the highest level, but everything was mounted models and face bow transfers and full probing, and you got all this data and you brought them back. But it's not that. I mean, we do block an hour and a half for a new patient exam. We can do it in an hour, but there's no models, there's no face bow in this exam. We always say you can diagnose the case without all those things. Now, you may need those things to treat the case if you're altering vertical dimension or changing the occlusion, but my staff probably spends 15-20 minutes gathering the data. I spend 10 to 15 minutes linking with the patient. The full exam is 8 to 10 minutes, and we gather all that data, and then it's another 10 to 15 minutes to answer their questions and show them the case. So, I mean,
that's efficient then.
Yeah, it's really efficient. And I mean, it's the exact same every single time. My staff asked me those questions. I could route off the answers before they asked me the question. They know the answers to the question. So there is a show quality for the patient. And it's not that you're showing off, but you want the patient to know everything you're looking at.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
There has to be a value there that, Dr. Coyce's line one was, it takes a lot of knowledge to say you're fine.
Yes.
The patient thinks, oh my gosh, he didn't look at anything. Well, I looked at 100 things and they're all acceptable. But unless you show them the 100 things you looked at, they don't know that.
Yep.
Wow, that's a powerful statement. That makes so much sense. It's just the word fine, right? What were you looking at to tell me that I was fine?
Yeah.
So in the 300 hours this year that you've spent, and probably all the typical things that have happened to multiple practices during COVID, how is there anything surprising that's come up? Is there anything different? How have you adapted to kind of still stay on top like you are today?
Our practice has changed a lot with COVID. I think a lot of people got introspective when this happened, and most dental offices are shut down for average of about 2 months. And, you're sitting there, and a good friend of mine from Productive Dentist Academy, day 2 sent me a text and said, hey, what do you want your practice to be like when you come back from this? Because you pick anything you want, right? And so molded over, and, we were on a trajectory and it was good, but it was like, it's not perfect how we want it. Is culture the right way? And so we had staff members that we've moved on from. We're actually gone from 3 doctors to 2 doctors. We're in the process of dropping insurance and completely getting rid of Delta Dental out of our practice. I knew Chad had followed Chad in that journey, and look up to him that way. But we've had patients. We don't have a perfect practice by any means. So all of a sudden, we have patients traveling from all over to see us, and then we're accepting a lesser fee to do their work, right?
Right.
It's all this training, and then we're not even given the value to the services that they deserve.
Said you were using PDA marketing. So you're paying marketing to bring in patients for a lesser value and then getting cut by insurance.
Correct.
Yeah. It was double dipping as far as the getting sliced at the knees.
Are you just trying to rub it in?
Yep. Yes. Because I don't want you to turn around and go back.
Just rub a little salt in the wound, okay?
Well, listen, I was there 6 months ago, so you and I are both fresh to the fee for service world.
Yeah. So it is. I get it. I mean, when I was younger, I mean, most dentists out there, I mean, I get it too. It's nerve-wracking just saying, hey, we're going to do this. And I do have to think you have to set yourself apart somehow. But, you know, when you spend all that time and that energy, you want to be rewarded for it. Otherwise, what's the point? I mean, and it's not about money or anything, but, you know, my biggest hard problem, and it was getting out of my own way. I have been so busy that how do you turn down that little easy thing that's sitting right there? And the insurance made it easy in a sense. But then I was turning down cases because I didn't have time to work them in my schedule. And so even since COVID, we haven't sent the letter into Delta. We're telling all the patients, but we've already changed the style of practice. We've slowed down. I went from 3 assistants to 1 assistant. And I think we're down $50 or $100 an hour, you know, in our production.
Something that's important, Reagan, to know about, you know, Dr. Wade, is because we kind of all keep a healthy track of one another for competition purposes and stuff like that, for fun, you know, those that want to share.
Of course.
And, you know, like, so Dr. Wade, you've not only, you know, gone from 3 to 1 assistant, but it's not because you're shrinking, you're becoming more focused on that comprehensive care. And so your hourly production is still over 900 an hour. I mean, so you're still killing it. I just want to keep in reference when people think, oh, he must be shrinking back.
That's right.
And that's not the truth. And the cool thing is, you know, you're not just getting head knowledge, but I thought I'd point out that you find a way to apply all that head knowledge, because you certainly do. I love, you know, like when we're able to either talk on the phone or talk at lunch or something like that, and we connect, and it's just like, you're not just getting abstract knowledge. You find ways to make it not only profitable, but advantageous for the patient's outcomes.
Yeah, and that's something, you know, we're working on with the new program, because for PDA is, you know, all this knowledge is great. And that's what I realized in my course journey. And so, I mean, I get it when people struggle, because I mean, I struggled with it too. But if I'm going to go invest, I mean, something we've invested, I've probably invested 200 hours in airway continuing education and growth and development over the last couple of years. You can't just take it. I mean, it's nice to know, but if you're not going to apply it, it's a waste, right? And so there's definitely things we need to do as far as developing that time, developing the systems and everything. But you have to put it in place, or else you're just wasting your time. I mean, it's a hobby at that point. Learning is, and I like learning, but it's not my hobby.
For sure.
So you're a mentor at Kois also. Is that true? Did I hear that right? What has that done for you in a giving back in the sense, I guess? Does that help you keep sharp and help you keep implementing? Do you feel pulled by another, you know, energy source there?
Well, I mean, one, I love the giving back, and I love working with dentists and helping them implement it and getting things implemented in their practice. But 2, as Chad will tell you, Dr. Kois adapts so much. So he's changing all the time. Yeah. So, you know, I'm probably going back up in January to help mentor the class that Chad just took. And I've probably been to that class, I don't know, 6 times. So I'm a really slow learner is one way to look at it. And so, you know, I can get back up into class and I can help some students, which really energizes me.
Right.
But at the same time, I learn every time I go. There's something new I learn. And it may be something I just didn't pick up the first time, or it may be something totally new that John's pulled out of the literature that changes how we practice. So
this makes me feel amazing from, really from a marketing standpoint, because you know how much CE I take as a marketer, trying to learn the newest, the latest, the greatest, and we're always tweaking. I'm always tweaking strategy or tweaking tactics, tweaking delivery, and it is tough implementing sometimes. And I feel like, gosh, I've just invested several thousand into this and I know it, but how do I pull it into active? I had no idea that dentists go through the same thing. I really didn't. Totally ignorant that you spend the money and then you have the knowledge, but where does it go? Where does it go?
I'll give you a perfect example. I haven't done much conscious sedation. I remember years ago, I took the docs sedation course, right? And I left that course and I knew how to titrate, and I knew the drugs and this and that, and but I never went and bought the equipment. I never set up the systems, and it was one of those courses I spent a weekend going, and I learned a lot, but I never implemented it. And so you get a few of those where you don't implement stuff, and you go, oh my gosh, that was a waste. I mean, I could have done something else that weekend rather than spend it in class. And so now, I mean, we make it a point. So we block off time on our schedule after a big course like that, especially a new one, where we come back, we share with the team. I am real big on sharing with the team, and why I think coaches are so important. Because if you tell someone you're going to do something, they get that chance to hold you accountable.
That's right.
And so, we tell our team, hey, this is our goal. And then we make, it sounds so stupid, but we make notes about our meetings, and then we come back and read the notes of the things we wanted to accomplish at the next meeting, just to see if we did them or not. And
That's
sometimes
not stupid. That's the opposite of stupid.
Oh, that is so stupid. I can't believe.
Well, sometimes we change our minds. We go, oh, we didn't do that, and that was a terrible idea anyway. When it comes off the notes. But sometimes it's like, we need to get back on that. So.
No, I think it's good for accountability, but also good for adaptability, because, in our business impact course that we just completed, and we're just launching that next one tonight, and
that was a good course.
Thank you. I thought it was fantastic as well. I'm glad our doctors all thought it was fantastic. But part of that is building a 2-year plan, and you could see it in the eyes. And I think I said on another podcast, being part of running PDA and seeing it from this national company perspective, just to get us to do a 2-year business plan is daunting, because you feel the finality of it. You feel like, once I put this pen to paper and say we're going to do this, maybe I can't change this. And the truth is, you can change it, but you just got to track it, and you got to keep on top of it and say, is this working? Is this not working? Where does this fit into our overall puzzle? So I think that's pretty neat to be able to have that accountability partner, like you said, with a coach that can help you be accountable but adaptable also.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those things. Like, I've always kind of had a coach, well, not always, but I've been through a few coaches, and most of the time they don't necessarily know anything, but it's just that you don't know, but it's an outside set of eyes. Sometimes it was when it's time to add another doctor, or if you're younger in practice, when do I add another assistant, or when do I add another front desk? I mean, I remember all those questions, and it was, well, they've seen hundreds of practices, and they know whether or not you need a front desk, or the front desk you have is just really inefficient. And I mean,
right.
It's something as simple as that really helps. And then as you get more deep, as it's business planning, like you said, for years ahead of dropping insurance and retirement savings and everything else that goes into it, and exit strategy. So it's hard to go through, we get one shot at this career, most of us, and, that they're seeing hundreds of careers. And so they just bring an insight that most people don't see.
So Wade, let me ask, fee for service, where are you on that? Have you switched over yet?
No. So we have our letter all ready to send in to the insurance company. We are trying to get face-to-face with as many patients as we can. We really feel it's important to see them in their face and tell them why we're doing it.
Before Delta hears, we don't want Delta to hear the podcast, right?
Oh, they've already called us, because our patients have already called them and been going.
They're what's funny is when, like, I think if you come to them and you ask to bargain, here's a little nugget for people. If you're not planning on going fee for service, pretend you are, and all of a sudden Delta's going to call you. But if you act like you're just like, we really want to have better reimbursement, they're going to say, all right, here's a 0.2% reimbursement increase over the next 15 years. They're going to give you something skimpy and stupid. But if you say, hey, we're leaving in 60 days, we're giving our 60 days notice, man, they will call you quick, and they will be willing to bargain. So I'm just throwing that out there. That
sounds like bargaining with a cable company.
Yep. It's almost the exact same thing, where you go, hey, we're going to move. Well, we can lower it $100. No, it's not about that. Like, we're actually we're moving off the grid to Alaska, so we're not going to need cable. Well, I'll tell you what we can offer you is 6 months, $200 off. And if you said, well, I'll tell you what, make it $200 a month off, and they go, okay, fine. And do you want XM radio with it? So
No.
well, my nugget, my point for the listeners is just pretend like you are. Seriously, just send in writing, hey, we're doing a 60-day notice because we're leaving. They're going to call you within an hour or two, or at least they did for me back in March when I sent my letter, and it shocked them. So even if you're not planning, I thought, wow, it was that easy. But basically, I think they know when someone isn't trying to bargain with them and that they mean business. Boy, that all of a sudden they want you more than they lead on.
You're going to
Yeah,
get in trouble,
us.
Chadwick.
Yes, I'm going to get in trouble. They're going to kick me out of network. That's my story. I'm like, maybe I shouldn't say anything more. Wade, closing thoughts about your culture. Like, how is that going? Like, as far as team harmony, with you having taken the foundations class that's going to be starting tonight for the new class. Well, for the people listening to this, a couple days ago. But
not too late to join in.
That's right.
Yeah.
How is your culture adapting to you vision casting and forecasting about the next couple of years, and how you were able to kind of channel that? Have you guys had a group meeting where you said, all right, gang, here's what we're going to do? That was my Bruce voice.
Yeah. For us, and I'm pretty open with my staff. I've been open with the desire to go this way. They ended up becoming more cheerleaders and saying, do it, do it, do it. We've definitely lost some staff members, not because of these decisions, but at the same time, they were the ones not necessarily on board with the decisions. So honestly, we are running a little short-staffed. Our practice philosophy's changing. Everyone's busy as can be, and they're happier than they've ever been. And we never had a bad team before, but when you really get a group of people that are excited about what you're doing, it just makes a difference. And so I would say with our culture, the team encouraging me and then me turning around and just handing that encouragement back has been great. So my team is absolutely amazing. We're still a little short-staffed. We're in the process of trying to hire. In this COVID world, it's kind of crazy. We're having trouble finding good people. But we're also at a point, the team is, that if someone comes in and doesn't fit our culture, they won't last here. The team has made that clear. I've made that clear. We've talked about it from a group. So we know our culture. We talk about our culture, what we expect from our teammates, the attitudes we have to have, how we always call good teamwork. Our definition of teamwork is making your other teammates look good.
Yes. That is the definition of teamwork.
So, if someone's not doing that, I've just told them, I was like, if you don't get rid of them, let me know and I will, because we have to be all on the same page. So as we're bringing people in, I will say we're going to defend our culture, defend our team, because a good team takes great care of patients, and we've got that right now. And we definitely don't want to mess it up.
Very cool. Good for you.
Wade, in all the time that I've known you, I have only heard you say extremely positive things about your team. And
well, they're great.
Well,
especially if they're listening to this podcast.
But so many dentists that I've talked to, they say they want that team. They want that rock star team. Max Thaney is another one that I've heard really give positive shout outs to his team as well. He's another productive dentist. And Wade, it's because you're an inspirational leader, and I hope you take that to heart and know that, because rockstar teams don't just appear all of a sudden. They have TLC. They need some tender, loving care. And it sounds to me like you've taken your communication to that next level with your team to make sure that everybody's on board. And that's a key foundational pillar of being a leader in the practice.
Well, I think sometimes, and not that we're going around and firing a bunch of people, but there are certain people that'll never fit on your team.
Sure.
And so to me, it's always been fairly easy to try to coax leaders and build leaders and be open with them. My biggest flaw though is when someone's not trying too hard sometime. And so that's one of the things I had to do to grow up, was to give my team the ability to help pick their team. Now, you don't do that lightly until they're on board and have your back, and
Right.
you know they have good intentions. But once you get those right people, and like you say, cultivate them, they grow it for you. I mean, that takes time. It doesn't happen immediately, but you know who has your back and is not out for them. And then you have to take care of those people because you can't afford to lose them.
You've been listening to Bruce.
Well,
10
done.
years.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that inspired me. That inspired me and encouraged me. I'd love to do a webinar. I would love to do a webinar on that, something that doctors could listen to, because I feel that there's a gap, Chad and Wade. I think there's a gap between empowering that team, right? You want an empowered team. You want a team that can help select and hold the culture and choose the team so you can delegate. That's one of Chad's hot words all the time, is to delegate that power. But there's a gap between here and there. There's a gap between onboarding a team member and getting them to that empowered stage. There's a big piece of opportunity there that doctors need help with.
Yeah, I don't know if it comes natural. And like I said, it's
No.
recognizing that strengths and weaknesses of those members is hard for me. And so, I mean, when you can get other people helping you, you can't see everything as the dentist.
That's right.
I mean, I hope not. I hope you're in there doing dentistry.
Yeah.
So people that have your back and have the same goals you have is important.
Clarifying the goals.
For sure.
Clarity, getting on the same page. I think that's our take-home message. Wade, thanks so much for joining us. I love your Southern accent. No, I'm just kidding.
I thank you, Chad. I've looked up to you and love watching you grow and everything you're doing, and Reagan and the marketing piece and your guys' energy. So I'm grateful to be on here and that you guys would even have me. So I appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Now go shoot some Razorbacks or something, would you?
We're going to play football this weekend as long as COVID doesn't get us. So we're excited.
No.
I mean, we're going to lose probably, but
Who are you playing?
Georgia.
Did they do the paper cutouts in the stands?
I think they are.
Yeah.
I'll be in the stands. They're allowing 17,000 fans, I think.
You get to go there in person?
Oh, yeah.
Congratulations. That would be fun. Yeah, I've missed that. There's been a lot of things that I've missed that I had taken for granted, didn't think about, but I didn't realize that you could be seated in stadiums yet. So that's pretty cool.
They're allowed 17,000, and I think it holds about 75, 76. So it won't be very full, but we'll be there.
Cool.
Well, thank you, Wade, so much.
Yep. Everyone, thanks for listening to our Everyday Practices podcast. We'll see you next week.
Bring your lunch or take us to the gym again next week to improve your everyday practices. Also, subscribe on iTunes, follow us on social media, and sign up for our email list. Now get out there and win with Everyday Practices.